On this week's episode, football battles Georgia in primetime. Women's soccer takes on Tennessee and Georgia. And men's soccer hosts Central Florida. This is Capital City Sports. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Pat Cloney. Well, we heard about it all week, and with game day here, it was being called the Game of the Year. And on Saturday, it was finally time to play the big game. Georgia at South Carolina at Williams-Brice Stadium. Hunter Banks was there. He has your highlight.
It's the number 6 Gamecocks versus the number 5 Bulldogs with ESPN College Game Day in town. Gamecocks looking to go to 6-0, and they get off to a good start and a fast start as Connor Shaw hits Demir Bird 42 yards down the field. Bird wrestles the ball away from the Georgia defender, and that is going to set up a Connor Shaw-Bruce Ellington connection that goes for 20 yards in the back of the end zone. Carolina up 7-0 after just 2.5 minutes. On the next Georgia drive, Kelsey Quarles bats the ball, and Devontae Holloman dives, grabs it. Gamecock football, and that is going to set up a Connor Shaw to Buster Anderson 14-yard fade route touchdown, adds 7 points. That's South Carolina up now 14-0. And then on the next drive, the defense forces a 3-and-out, and Georgia makes the mistake of punting to Ace Sanders. He's going to take it back, use his ninja moves, use the force. He goes back 70 yards all the way to the end zone. Couldn't make it quite there in the Missouri game. He does make it this time. Gamecocks up 21-0 in the first quarter. Later in the third quarter, Connor Shaw's going to hook up with the big man downfield, D.L. Moore. That's good for 62 yards down to the 1-yard line. It's going to set up the Marcus Lattimore show. He's going to punch it in from there. And that's going to make the score. Carolina up 4 touchdowns at 28-0. In the fourth quarter, the Gamecocks are able to do something they haven't been able to do all year. They have a long drive that eats up 8 minutes and 43 seconds off the clock, and they capitalize on that Connor Shaw touchdown. Gamecocks up 35-0. Defense held on for 58.5 minutes, but they can't hold on the whole game. Ken Malcolm gets down inside the 5-yard line. He punches it in from there. Final score, South Carolina 35, Georgia 7. Hunter Banks, Capital City Sports.
The Gamecock offense came firing out of the gates, scoring 21 first-quarter points, and they never looked back. For a closer look at this performance, we sent it to Williams-Brice Stadium with Josh and Alyssa in the boardroom.
Welcome to this week's episode of Capital City Sports. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alyssa Lang. Joining me is Joshua Huffines. We're going to start by breaking down this past weekend's game against the Georgia Bulldogs, where the Gamecocks were victorious 35-7. Let's start by talking about the offense. Very surprising looking at the numbers that the offense put up, passing yards versus rushing yards. Only 162 yards from passing, but 230 yards came from the Gamecocks running the ball. Talk about that. Why was that so weird? Like, that's not like the Gamecocks, not like Steve Spurrier.
I mean, it's really interesting when you're looking at it. Connor Shaw only threw 10 passes overall, only made 6 completions, and yet was still able to throw for 162 yards. It's quite impressive. It does help when you have some good receivers such as Demir Bird and D.L. Moore out there.
Right.
As far as the rushing yards, Spurrier did exactly what I think a lot of people were hoping he would do. He brought out the I formation. He brought out his running backs. He started
we
running
love that
Lattimore.
I formation.
We do love it.
Well, they definitely relied heavily on the running backs. Lattimore was 24 carries for 110 yards. And then you saw more action from Kenny Miles towards the end of the game. He was 10 for 39. You really saw the running backs fighting for every yard they got, and they put up a lot of yards.
They really were. I mean, Georgia's defense is still a decent defense.
Right.
It's not, it is an SEC defense.
Right.
But, you know, every yard we did fight, we still were able to get some big plays, which helped us get first downs and more points on the board.
Yeah. Now, earlier you mentioned the fact that Connor Shaw only threw 10 passes the entire game, and he only completed 6 of them. That's a very interesting stat to look at. What's also interesting is the fact that all of those passes were receptions over 20 yards. These were all deep balls, which is nice to see from Connor Shaw. The biggest one being to DL Moore, a pass of 62 yards. Not only did that get the crowd back in the game, but that was just nice to see.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've said last week and I've said before, Connor Shaw can throw a deep ball and he can throw it well. And I'm glad that Spurrier called a few play calls, getting him to air out that ball some more, and it was really good for the Gamecocks.
It was beautiful to see. Another thing that was absolutely phenomenal was Ace Sanders' punt return. He laughed a little bit in the press conference because he actually fumbled the ball when he first tried to catch it, picked it back up, and then returned it for a touchdown in typical Ace Sanders fashion. Talk about what kind of effect that had on the crowd and what that was like. What kind of push did that give the Gamecocks early on in the game?
Well, when you're a fan and you're sitting in the stands and you see your punt returner fumble a ball, it can be a heart attack.
Oh, yeah.
But he picked it back up, found a lane, and as he did say, there was better blocking. His, special teams overall has gotten way better in the past couple of years.
Definitely.
Able to find that lane and get himself a touchdown with explosive speed.
It was definitely nice to see. That will do it for us talking about Gamecock offense. Join us after the break where we will break down the phenomenal performance of the Gamecocks defense.
After the break, we head back to the boardroom to break down the Carolina defense in the Georgia game. And Nicole Butler tells you all about women's soccer against Tennessee. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. The Gamecock defense once again dominated the competition at Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday. For a closer look at their performance, we send it back to Josh and Alyssa at Williams-Brice Stadium for the boardroom.
Back. We're back in the boardroom. My name's Alyssa. Joining me is Josh. Now we're going to break down the Gamecocks defense, which was absolutely phenomenal tonight against Georgia. One thing that was very entertaining, I know for Josh to watch, was the pass rush. Talk about that. Why'd you love it so much?
I love a good defensive line pass rush. Aaron Murray was supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC.
He had no chance.
He was supposed to be able to throw unbelievable. He was held to a 35.5% completion rating with only 109 yards.
Wow.
Our own Connor Shaw threw more than Aaron Murray. And Jadeveon Cloney had quite the night.
Jadeveon?
Jadeveon, I'm sorry. It's a Southern thing. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a me thing.
Jadeveon did have quite the night. He was talking about how much he enjoyed the pass rush too, and also mentioned something that he noticed early on in the game, the fact that Aaron Murray was tapping the Georgia center on the waist, which indicated the fact that he wanted him to snap the ball. He had to do this because the atmosphere here at Williams-Brice was just so loud, the center couldn't hear Aaron Murray calling to snap the ball. So that kind of helped Cloney get the jump on the pass rush a little bit, which is why you saw him very active. He
Absolutely.
had 1 sack.
I think that 1 sack he got should also be accredited to the crowd maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
It was definitely impressive.
Now,
also, what came along with that was the interception.
Very true, by Devontae Holloman off of a tipped pass. Seemed like it kind of landed right into his hands, didn't it?
It did. It was a well-thrown ball by Aaron Murray. Problem is that one of our defensive line had their hands up there.
Yeah.
Was able to tip it pretty high. Devontae Holloman was able to look at it and get his hands on it.
Right place,
turning
right
over the
time.
ball. That's very demoralizing.
Well, another thing that I guess you could say is demoralizing for the Georgia offense is the fact that the Gamecock defense held them to a total of 224 yards. Now, this is less yards than the Gamecocks put up rushing alone. Talk about that. Why is that such a thing that the Gamecock defense should be proud of, really.
I mean, between the atmosphere and how well the Gamecocks, the defense was playing, it is quite an achievement. It is fantastic. Even the freshman running back duo, Gershel
ain't Herschel, though, right?
Absolutely. But we were able to hold them. I believe we held Gurley to 3.1 yards per carry, and we had Marshall at 3.0 yards per carry.
They only got a total of 76 yards between the two of them.
Quite impressive when you think about how the Gamecock defense played in the first half during the Kentucky game.
Now, I know we were not impressed at all with the way the Gamecock defense performed against Kentucky. I think we gave them a grade of a C, C-, C+. What grade would you give the Gamecock defense tonight against Georgia?
A AAA double plus.
AAA double plus. A 2,500 on the SAT?
I'm going to say a little bit more than that.
I would have to agree. They definitely came out with that air about them. They mentioned an athletic arrogance in the press conference. Do you think they'll be able to carry that same attitude into LSU next week? Because I think they're definitely going to need to.
I think so. I mean, honestly, I really think they looked at this game and they're going to be able to better themselves. I mean, this game could have actually gone better in some ways.
Definitely.
So, I mean, I think they realize that they can still improve and that they have LSU in Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge. And then, of course, we have Florida in Gainesville. Both two really tough opponents.
Definitely.
In away games.
The Gamecocks are definitely going to need to prepare for those games. Is there anything else you'd like to add about tonight's game?
I just want to point out that in this lighting, the dreads looked amazing.
We know how Joshua feels about his dreads.
They're pretty awesome.
Were any particular players' dreadlocks standing out to you tonight?
Defensive dreadcock player of the game goes to Cloney for picking up on Aaron Murray's tapping on the center's thigh.
Very
smart. Very smart.
Impressive. And the dreads certainly helped with that too, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that will do it for us breaking it down Gamecock defense. Join us after the break. We will preview next week's game against LSU.
Women's soccer was home at Stone Stadium on Friday night. They took on a tough opponent in the Tennessee Volunteers. Nicole Butler was there. She'll tell you all about it. On Friday, the South Carolina women's soccer team took on the Tennessee Volunteers. Immediately from kickoff, the game was hard fought. Vicious tackles were served from both sides. This game was a battle for both teams. Tennessee had great chances to score, but sophomore goalkeeper Sabrina D'Angelo was a wall in the goal for the first half. The Gamecocks had their chances as well in the half, but the Volunteers' sophomore goalkeeper Julie Eckel gave the Gamecocks little hope of scoring a goal. The second half started as physical as the first half. Tennessee made their breakthrough with junior midfielder Caroline Brown chipping the ball past D'Angelo after a cross from sophomore midfielder Brittany Waite. The Volunteers only had 4 shots on goal in the game, but this was the decisive goal. The Gamecocks, not discouraged by the goal, continued to attack the Tennessee goal with reckless abandon, but Eckel was there to stop every Gamecock chance at goal. The Gamecocks gave it their all, but in the end, Tennessee just had too much for the Gamecocks to overcome. The final score, Tennessee 1, South Carolina 0. Subbing in for Nicole Butler, I'm Pat Cloney, Capital City Sports. Coming up after the break, we head back to the boardroom for some predictions for this weekend's big game in LSU. And we've got more soccer highlights for you, both men's and women's. Stick around. After a huge win against Georgia, the Gamecocks look to back their number 3 ranking as they travel to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers. For a preview of this game, we send it to Josh and Hunter back on campus for the boardroom.
Hello and welcome in. We're changing scenery a little bit because we weren't quite prepared to break down LSU when we were at the game Saturday.
Absolutely, Alyssa. Looks like you've changed it a little bit. I
Yeah,
like your
know.
hair.
Thank you. I need to get it cut though. But
Just a little bit.
But hey, you're lucky I shaved today.
Ooh,
But
God, I don't want to see that.
I know I ended up looking like you, dude.
Okay,
But,
this
but,
beard's beautiful.
Yeah, let's talk some LSU football. LSU's obviously a good team. You know,
Yes, they are.
they lost to Florida. How do you think they played against Florida? Do you think that's the LSU team that they are? Was it a
I
down
well
week?
and truly believe that is the LSU team that they are. The problem is that they have absolutely no offense right now. Mettenberger is not throwing well.
True
The
story.
decisions he's making are not very good. The receivers, I mean, their offense is subpar right now, especially when you consider LSU's history in the past 5 years. They are not doing well at all. The only thing that I am afraid of, LSU's defense, is I want to say number 2 in the nation for the pass defense.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
It is a top 5 defense.
Oh, for sure.
For pass.
That's
for
the
passing.
way all of Les Miles teams are. They're always defense heavy, and that's what got them to the national championship last year. You know, look what it got them. But
I mean, well, yeah.
But you know, so LSU last week. That's really who they are.
Yeah, I well and truly believe, and I mean they've had problems with defending against the run, and that really did show at Florida.
Yeah.
Florida's running backs ran all over them, got some big plays, and they were able to score 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Speaking of running backs, let's talk about Hilliard, LSU's running back. You know, he doesn't have the name recognition that Marcus Lattimore does, and some would say he's not quite as good, but he's still an SEC running back. He's a quality player.
Absolutely. He doesn't have as many yards as Marcus Lattimore has, but he is, I want to say, 6.6 yards on the carry this season so far. It is a very good average. I want to say Lattimore's is currently around 4.7.
Yeah. Lattimore's kind of gone into the workhorse mode.
Yeah, we'll see we'll see how he comes out against LSU.
Yeah, but LSU, most of the time when you tell somebody, all right, LSU, you say LSU, they think Tiger Stadium, Death Valley.
I was thinking Pansies, but
well, okay.
That was a joke.
I mean, I guess everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Hey, we'll see.
When you hear Death Valley, what do you think?
I think a very loud crowd, obnoxious, tough to play against.
They're 21-0.
That's what I think of.
The last 21 games, they haven't lost a single one.
It is impressive, but they're about to lose one. So.
Well, hey, the last 5 years, they've played 4 teams in Death Valley ranked higher than them. They've lost 3 of those 4 times.
And that is really good for us. Hopefully, we will come out on top. We'll see how that goes.
Hopefully, it'll be 4 or 5.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get a win over them. I'm hoping. But so here's a question for you, sir.
Okay.
LSU, South Carolina, this Saturday at 8 on ESPN. Who's going to be the breakout player for the Gamecocks offense?
When you say breakout, are you talking someone who hasn't already broken out?
I mean, they can already break out. I mean, I'm talking, who do you think is going to be our
gonna
star offensive player? Who's going to have the big game against LSU?
I think it'll be Connor Shaw.
You think it'd be?
I think he'll go. I think he'll break 200 yards passing, and he'll break 75 yards rushing.
I don't think he will break 200 yards passing. I believe LSU has a huge problem stopping the run. I mean, Florida's quarterback had a lot of sacks against him, but when I was looking at the highlights, he made some very bad decisions. He stayed in the pocket too long. Connor Shaw doesn't do that.
Exactly. That's what Connor Shaw's good at.
He is very good at that. So I'm going to say, I think actually I'm going to pick 2 people to have a breakout game. I'm going to say
you didn't tell me I could pick 2?
Yeah, well, you're not allowed to. I am.
Okay,
Anyway, I'm going to say Marcus Lattimore combined with Connor Shaw. It'll put the defense on their heels. They're not going to be used to it. Both of them will get some big yardage rushing.
You think they'll have twice as many rushing yards as they do passing?
Absolutely. That's my guess. This past game against Georgia only threw 6 out of 10 passes. I mean, 10 passes total.
That is not vintage Spurrier.
It is very different from Spurrier.
Connor Shaw may not admit it, but that is not what he likes to do. Quarterbacks like to throw the ball.
Absolutely.
But speaking of throwing the ball, Mettenberger, not the greatest thrower.
6 touchdowns.
3 interceptions.
And 3 interceptions.
It's I believe it's around 50% completion percentage.
Currently he's hanging around 61%.
Well, I was way off.
You were way off, but 61% does not compare to Connor Shaw's 75%.
Exactly.
So we'll see how that'll play out. Well, but I think we're gonna wrap this up real quick. Prediction time. Who do you think's gonna win? Give me a score.
I think the Gamecocks will pull it out. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think it'll be a defensive battle because, like you said, they have a great defense. And obviously, nowadays, when you think South Carolina Gamecocks, you think of good defense.
Absolutely.
As long as Marcus Lattimore. But,
Yes.
you know, that's just kind of an aside. But I think I'll go with 17-14. I think Adam Yates is going to have not game-winning, like late in the game, you know, time running out, but I think Adam Yates will be a deciding factor in this game. I know Spurrier doesn't like to kick field goals, but I think he's going to have to.
I think both Les Miles and Spurrier are going to go at it a little bit. I don't think they're going to settle for a field goal too much. I think there's going to be some fourth downs and some fourth down conversions. I believe that, which is why I'm going to go ahead and say 21-10 Gamecocks.
Yeah, well, hey, we're just throwing out numbers here. We did, some research, but Alyssa's the one that's had the good track record.
Well, there was that one little shiner against Georgia. I want to say I predicted South Carolina to win.
None of us did good.
Okay, who predicted South Carolina 35, Georgia 21? That was me.
All right, I'll give you that.
So I'm just going to say that. She predicted an overtime field goal, although we don't want to rip on our co-host who isn't here too much. But that's my prediction for LSU, South Carolina. I'm going to say 21-10. I think we're going to pull it out on them because they can't stop the run very well, and Connor Shaw and Marcus Lattimore will have a game.
All right, here's a question for you. How much grass is Les Miles going to eat before the game's over?
A lot.
I was thinking maybe a pound. Over, under.
Oh, yeah.
Take the over.
Over, definitely.
All right.
Over.
That's going to do it for us this week. Tune in next week as we will break down the LSU game and preview the Florida game in the Swamp.
Football wasn't the only team taking on Georgia this weekend. The Lady Gamecocks soccer team also took on the Bulldogs at Stone Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Jeremy Urso was there. He has your highlight.
Not only did the Gamecocks play the Bulldogs in football this past weekend, but they also played them in women's soccer in a very important conference matchup. The Gamecocks haven't won a match in almost a month, and we're trying to change that streak. The 6-6-2 Georgia Bulldogs, trying to capitalize after a win against Ole Miss, came out with a strong offense early in the game, but the Gamecocks' defense came out stronger. Georgia had multiple opportunities to score early, but South Carolina was able to hold them off as their defense worked hard during the entire match, only allowing 5 shots by Georgia. South Carolina's defense led to a great offense, and halfway through the first half, number 2, Gabrielle Gilbert, scores as Georgia's goalkeeper is unable to block it. It is 1-0, South Carolina. But then, in the final minutes of the first half, it seems that Georgia scores off a direct free kick, but they are called offsides by the referee. The score is still 1-0, South Carolina. USC's defense continued to play hard throughout the second half and was able to prevent Georgia from scoring any goals. South Carolina wins 1-0 over Georgia as they get a much-needed win and try to build on some momentum going into the end of the season. Jeremy Urso, Capital City Sports.
Men's soccer played a home game of their own this week. They were at Stone Stadium on Wednesday to take on Central Florida. Lauren Harper was there. Let's send it to her.
It's the Gamecocks taking on the Golden Knights of UCF. Mark Burson in his 35th year coaching here at USC. And early on, got a little brutality going on as Kevin Stam goes up and lends an elbow to a UCF player. Stam would be talked to, but no cards would be issued. And early on, the Gamecocks had trouble hanging on to the ball, keeping possession. Alex Long with the goal kick goes right to the Golden Knights, something the Gamecocks struggled with throughout the entire game, really. Corner kicks were also something that the Gamecocks struggled with as Ryan Arambula sends this one in, and Eric Martinez makes contact with it, heads it towards the goal, but straight at the keeper. But not to worry, Gamecock fans. Carolina gets on the board Jeffrey Torta sends it in. Hunter Wire, diving header, back of the goal. Fans are excited. He's excited. That's his first goal of the season. Gamecocks up 1-0 at this point. Later in the game, Steven Anderson is going to find Ryan Arambula, who finds Bradley Baladez, and his shot goes off the post. And guess who's there? Arambula. Gamecocks up 2-0. Hunter Wire scored his first goal of the season earlier. Arambula scores his first goal of the season right there. Gamecocks 2-0, but that wouldn't last. UCF gets on the board in the second half. That would be your final. South Carolina beating the Golden Knights 2-1. Hunter Banks, Capital City Sports.
That's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out any more of our footage, you can go online to sgtv.sc.edu. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at CCS on SGTV and like us on Facebook. Just search Capital City Sports. For all of us here at CCS, I'm Pat Cloney. Have a great week, Carolina.